Hey there! Ready for a deep dive that might just blow your mind? We're tackling Michel Foucault today.
Foucault. Oh man, his ideas are like those earworm songs. You hear them once, they stick with you, making you see the world differently.
It's kind of scary how relevant his stuff from decades ago still is, especially in our social media age. Like, did this guy have a crystal ball or something? We're going deep on power, knowledge, control. Foucault helps us see those invisible strings pulling at us every day.
Yeah, and he doesn't just stop at the obvious stuff, like governments and all that. Foucault shows us how power operates subtly, like in those institutions we just accept as part of life.
All right, so for those of us who haven't read every word this guy wrote, give us the gist. Who was Michel Foucault?
So picture France, 1926. This guy Foucault is born, and he becomes like this huge name in philosophy. But his work, it's not stuck in some dusty corner of the library. His ideas, they've impacted basically everything, sociology, literature, you name it.
Clearly not your average sit in an armchair philosopher. Got an example of his work really shaking things up.
Well, there's plenty. But his idea of power knowledge, total game changer. It forces you to rethink what you even consider knowledge in the first place. See, Foucault argued it's not this neutral thing. Knowledge is all tangled up with power. Whoever's in control, they get to shape what we accept as truth or normal.
Whoa, so it's like history class, the news, even what's healthy, not necessarily objective truth bombs.
Bingo. History books, usually written by the winners.
Yeah.
The news. Well, corporations with their own agendas control a lot of that.
Yeah.
And health advice. Don't get me started on the influence of some of those pharmaceutical companies. Foucault just makes you see that power is always lurking behind the scenes, shaping everything we think we know.
It's like there's this whole other layer of influence most people don't even realize is there. Kind of creepy, honestly.
It can be, but once you start seeing those power dynamics, you're way more equipped to actually challenge them, you know?
So if knowledge and power are like best buddies or something, how does this all play out in our day-to-day lives?
Foucault, he was obsessed with how power has, transformed over time. Back in the day, it was all brute force. Public executions, torture, yikes. They wanted everyone to see who was boss.
Yeah, not exactly the ideal workplace environment, huh?
Right. But Foucault says modern societies do power differently. It's sneakier, more under the radar. He calls it disciplinary power. It's how places like schools, prisons, even hospitals mold people not through brute force, but through these subtler things. Rules, schedules, constant evaluations, they all aim to create these obedient, self-disciplined folks.
So instead of public hangings, we get detention, bad performance reviews, and the fear of like getting canceled online. It's like Big Brother's always watching, even when there's no one physically there.
You got it. And that leads us to one of Foucault's most chilling ideas, the panopticon.
Hold up. Before we go full-on Black Mirror, I gotta ask, because I'm guessing most folks haven't spent their weekend with Foucault. What is this panopticon thing?
All right, so picture this. A circular prison, cells all around a central tower. Guards in that tower, they can see into every single cell. But the prisoners, they have no clue if they're being watched at any given moment.
So constant paranoia.
You nailed it. That possibility being watched, it's enough to make prisoners control their own behavior, right? They internalize the surveillance and become their own jailers, in a way.
Okay, yeah, that panopticon thing is straight out of a Black Mirror episode. And it's not just about actual prisons, right? It's about how power works in society.
Exactly. Think about it. Surveillance cameras everywhere, our online activity tracked, and social media. We're all performing, worried about likes, feeling judged, like this digital panopticon, right?
Totally. I haven't posted a selfie without overthinking it in, well, forever probably.
Oh.
So we've got knowledge and power all chummy, this creepy panopticon.
Yeah.
What else goes into this power cocktail Foucault's mixing up?
Well, Foucault also dug into this idea of biopolitics.
Mhm.
Basically, modern states. They're not just about controlling what we do, but also like managing our whole lives.
So not just telling us what to do, but who TOBE. Getting intense now.
Yeah, it's deep. He's saying this biopower works through healthcare systems, welfare programs, public health stuff. Think vaccination campaigns, those anti-smoking ads that are everywhere, even calorie counts on menus.
Yeah.
All for our own good, right?
Right, because who doesn't love a sight of guilt with their burger?
Exactly. But the thing is, it's not about saying these things are BD. It's about seeing how they're also about managing people, controlling birth rates, lifespans, making citizens healthy and productive.
So me trying to eat a salad could be seen as me, like, submitting to biopower.
It's not about that.
Okay.
It's about understanding this is how power can work in subtle ways, impacting our lives.
Mind officially blown. But Foucault, he didn't stop there, did he? He went to a topic a lot of folks get uncomfortable with: sexuality.
Yep, and this is where people get him wrong. They hear sexuality and assume he's all about, like, anything goes.
Not exactly a free love hedonism party with Foucault.
Not even close. He argued that starting around the 18th century, Western society got really fixated on categorizing, controlling sexuality. Not just saying no to sex, but defining what's normal and, more importantly, what's deviant.
So instead of no, they made a whole rule book about it.
Exactly. And that, for Foucault, is power in action. You define normal sexuality, you automatically create deviant categories. And those have real consequences for people, socially, politically.
Like how being gay was considered a mental illness for years, or all the stuff around gender identity and trans rights today, right?
Exactly. Foucault gives us a way to understand how those categories get made, how they control people, and how we can challenge them.
Okay, this power stuff is heavy. Did Foucault think we could ever escape these structures, or are we stuck?
He did have some hope. He believed wherever there's power, there's resistance. Power isn't something one group just hates. It's always being negotiated, fought over.
So not about overthrowing power completely, but understanding it, finding ways to push back, subvert it.
Yeah. Foucault loved how people resist categories, challenge the usual stories, create different ways of knowing, different experiences. It's ongoing, not just one revolution.
So people challenging gender norms, fighting for social justice, that kind of thing.
Exactly. That's what he was talking about. Questioning the status quo, pushing against oppression, trying to create a more just world.
Interesting. Because for someone who went so deep into the dark side of power, Foucault wasn't totally gung-ho about reason and progress like a lot of thinkers were back then, right?
Good catch. He saw the good in the Enlightenment, individual liberty, science advancing, but also a dark side. The same things that brought progress also led to new, sneakier ways of control.
So the Enlightenment, all about rationality and all, might have accidentally made new ways to control people. A lot of irony there.
A lot to process, for sure. Take places like hospitals, prisons, mental asylums back then. Those were progress. Reason, science fixing social problems. But Foucault's saying they also became about power, categorizing, making people normal, and often excluding or marginalizing them too.
Man, okay, so much to unpack. Power mixed with knowledge, this panopticon thing, biopower shaping us, even the Enlightenment gets questioned. What's the takeaway for us? Why should we care what some French philosopher said decades ago?
Because it's more relevant than ever. We're dealing with surveillance, social control, the power of institutions, especially with technology now. Foucault gives us tools to think about this stuff, see past the surface. It's wild, right? Foucault makes you question things we usually see as good. We're always told how important knowledge and education are, and they are. You'd be like, hold on, whose knowledge, whose voices are we not hearing?
Yeah, like that saying, history is written by the victors. We're usually just getting one side of the story.
Exactly. He helps us see knowledge isn't this pure, untouchable thing. It's created within power structures. And often those structures favor certain viewpoints, right? While others get pushed aside.
So just being informed isn't enough. We got to get critical, ask, where's this info coming from? What's the agenda here? And who's not being represented?
Now you're talking. That's a superpower these days, especially with how much information overload is thrown at us constantly.
Seriously. It's like Foucault's even more relevant now with social media, algorithms controlling what we see, and all the misinformation out there.
Totally. His work helps us understand how technology, as amazing as it can be, it's also used to manipulate us,
Yeah.
shaping what we believe, the narrative we're exposed to, even how we act. And not always for the good.
This whole deep dive has been mind-blowing. I'll admit, Foucault's stuff, it can feel heavy at first. But once these concepts click power knowledge, that creepy panopticon, biopower, it's like you see the Matrix, those power dynamics are everywhere.
It's true. He gives us this whole new language for understanding the world. Just like learning any language, the more fluent you get, the better you are at navigating it, and even challenging the stuff that feels unfair.
So to wrap up our Foucault adventure, what's
Wow.
the one thing you want our listeners to walk away with?
It's simple, but important. Never stop questioning. Question the things you take for granted, the institutions you deal with, the information you're consuming. By doing that, you're not just becoming more informed, you're pushing back against those invisible forces that are always trying to shape your life.
And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder those big Foucault-inspired questions. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.